welcome back to Agents of Fandom. I'm Faisha. I'm here with the one and only Lenore Zann, who plays Rogue in the X-Men animated series, as well as the upcoming Marvel Animations X-Men 97.
Hello, sugar.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to see you.
So, it's been 30 years since the original series. Now that you're back with most of the same cast, how does it feel to be back to be Rogue again?
Well, I love Rogue. You know, she's one of my favorite characters that I've ever played. So I always like to say it's kind of like pulling on a pair of fine, well-worn gloves. You know, she's so warm and she's right there. She's part of me. So I love putting her on and getting into her character.
All this jazz.
Yeah.
So not only is the X-Men, the anime series, iconic, but your depiction of Rogue is specifically very iconic, with lines like, being cemented into pop culture. Besides that famous catchphrase, what personal favorite Rogue lines that doesn't get much love?
Well, I mean, you look about as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
It's just like the jitters are just going, woo!
I mean, that one gets some love, that's for sure, but that's one of my favorites. I also love Get Out of My Mind. And, you know, I had me a boyfriend when I was 13. Had me a boyfriend till I kissed him. Poor boy went into a coma for 3 days. So if I touched anybody, it just drove the life right out of him.
I love it. So you've spoken on how you and many of the cast didn't realize the impact of the X-Men series on fans until it was over.
Yeah.
And you've been politically active and outspoken on issues of equality, social justice, climate change. Now knowing the impact of the X-Men, how does it feel to be able to bring that message to a whole new generation of fans? And how does that change your approaching Rogue in this new series?
Let's put it this way, Sugar. I feel a great sense of responsibility because there are so many important issues that are affecting a lot of people today. And because I have a platform now, because of the importance of the X-Men to so many people, I always want to make sure that I get it right. And I think that there's so much right now, hatred, division, and bigotry, people attacking people of the LGBTQ2+ community, racialized people, immigrants, people of different faiths. It's terrible. It's really sad. And it's like, have they not learned by now? I mean, you know, 30 years ago, we did a show that was about those issues. And it almost feels like we've gotten backwards of late. So I think that the timing of the X-Men coming out is really good right now to spread the word that, hey, again, it's okay to be different. It's okay. In fact, isn't it wonderful that we are so different and that we can, all of our differences can be brought together as a beautiful whole, as opposed to everybody being cookie cutter images of each other. How boring a world would that be, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, like, yeah, bring it on. And this is what we need to talk about.
It's so much that you say that. As someone who said and the X-Men looked up to the X-Men for a lot of different things, that means a lot to hear that.
Thank you. Well, I think, you know, you need allies, right? And I believe we all belong to the same family. We're part of this family. So, like, yeah, we're better off together than we are separately. And people who want to manipulate others will oftentimes use a very simple way of trying to pick a group of people, whatever that is, turn them into the enemy, and say, oh yeah, these are the people, this is the problem.
Okay.
While meanwhile, they're doing all kinds of terrible things over here because they've got you all focused on this one thing. And they're focusing on people's outrage as opposed to let us talk amongst each other. Let's have a discussion about these things as opposed to just going for each other's jugular right off the bat.
Please.
I don't know.
So, we saw the first episode. X-Men 97 was amazing, and it really feels like the original series in so many ways. But that way of animation has progressed over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
How has the recording process changed for you by playing Rogue again?
Well, I mean, back when we did the original series, we all were in Toronto, and we went into the same studio, Sounds Interchange, and in the beginning, we were actually in the same room recording. So we'd be in the studio, and they'd have the microphones in a circle, and so we'd all be around the circle, and we would read it like a radio play. So we would actually go through scenes, and we'd get to see each other and laugh at each other too sometimes and make fun of each other. We joshed around a lot. We really bonded that way. And it was a lot of fun. And then we'd go out. We usually would go out for a couple of drinks after the show, after the recording, because it was a little bar outside of there under it, like a patio. So we'd go sit in the sun and we'd all hang out. It was really fun. So fast forward now, you know, the pandemic has created all these different things where people are used to using Zoom and recording people by themselves separately, which has actually come in handy because most of us live in different cities. So there are some of the original folks that are in Toronto. There are some of the original folks in Vancouver. There are new folks that have joined the cast that are in LA and New York. And I've been in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is where I grew up. So, you know, I moved back home about 17 years ago. I went into politics for 12 years and came out the other side, and now I'm a superhero again. So, you know, but I'm like, I kind of like the fact that I've been doing it, recording it in Halifax, and bring the Maritimes into the mix too.
Like nostalgia. And like being back with this giant family.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So Rogue has been through many different interpretations in her 40 plus years in comics, and then of course in the early 2000s X-Men movies with it. But for many, your interpretation and your voice is what fans hear when they're reading it. For you, what are some of the core aspects of Rogue, and why has she been able to say so relatable for years?
Well, first of all, I gotta say I'm really honored and humbled by the fact that so many fans say, I hear your voice in my head when I'm reading.
I did too. I'll put the record straight there.
You know, so it's like I'm living rent-free in your head. I mean, you should be charging me.
Got the Disney books already, I think.
Right. But, so I'm really honored about that. And I think Rogue, I think that she appeals to people because, well, yes, she's funny, she's sexy, she's self-deprecating, she's cool, she's calm most of the time. But she also has a little bit of a sense of a loner because of her superpower being that she is so empathic that if she touches anybody, she can drain them of all their life force, thus becoming stronger herself, but killing them. It means that she has to really constantly have her guard up. She can never allow herself to fully fall in love and get comfortable and just start to be physical with someone. And so that means she's lonely. She's really lonely, and she wants to be in love. She wants to have intimacy. She would love to probably have a family someday. So when she looks around and sees all these other people having this wonderful life, she feels kind of like an observer, like left out, like watching from outside on the in. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of teenagers can relate to that too, where you feel like, I don't quite fit in, I don't belong, where do I belong? Mm-hmm. I'm not quite comfortable in my own skin. Who am I? Why am I this way? And she still has that. But, you know, she does start to embrace who she is when she goes to Muir Island in The Cure, where she goes, I want to get rid of my superpowers because I want to be normal. Mm-hmm. So by the end of that episode, she realizes it's actually those superpowers that give her pain that make her who she is. And she says, you know, there ain't no cure for who you are. And I would like to say, nor should there be. Yeah. You know,
in some ways, pain makes us stronger.
Yes, exactly. You know, but I think that we need to learn how to embrace ourselves and accept ourselves for who we are. and learn to love ourselves. And to be honest, that is one of the hardest things, and for many women too, we're always taught to be selfless and think of others and put others first and whatever. And you feel a little bit selfish if you're trying to take any time for yourself. And so we oftentimes have a bit of a guilt thing going on. And so, to be able to actually love and accept ourselves and allow ourselves to have time to just be without having to always think about what can I do for someone else. That's a hard thing for women.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think women can relate to her that way too.
And I mean, very. So, another vote term.
Yeah.
Bring back the tone.
Yeah.
You've said Ray is back and is back with vengeance.
Yes.
What has been your favorite part stepping back into the character and with the new adventures in X-Men 97?
Well, I mean, I just love the fact she's such a kick-ass woman.
Love the badass woman in the universe.
Right. So, yeah, she is tough, and she's not afraid to put herself in danger in order to try and help others. And she also has the back of her colleagues and of people that she loves, and of people in general that need someone to be their champion. And so I love her for all those reasons. And I think that's probably why a lot of fans do too.
Yeah, I mean, especially. Because it's just everything.
Aw, thank you. That's great. I can't wait to hear what you think about the new episodes after the one that you already saw today.
Yeah, so Leslie, on top of coming back as Rose, you are also writing a memoir.
Yes.
About your life called, funny enough, A Rose Tale.
Right.
As well as children's books, like the Ozzy 6.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I started to write my memoir after about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. I decided that it was time to try and capture my childhood in Australia and then moving over to Canada as an immigrant kid with a funny Australian accent. When we moved to Regina, Saskatchewan first for a year, and the kids there, they couldn't understand what I was saying, and they asked me, "What language do you speak in Australia?"
As someone who has immigrant parents, I totally understand.
Right?
Yeah.
So I was a kid that was constantly trying to fit in, and we moved from Regina after a year over to Nova Scotia. So then I had to meet a whole bunch of new people, and then we moved 1, 2, 3, 4. We moved 4 times after we moved to Nova Scotia. So I went to all these different schools, and had to meet the kids all the time. And again, always trying to kind of fit in or try to figure out where your place was in the pecking order. And I became kind of funny and self-deprecating in that way. But then by the time I was 13, I developed breasts.
As women do.
As women do. And it was funny how, suddenly the boys' attitudes really changed towards me.
Yep.
And suddenly it was like they all wanted to talk to me or carry my books or walk to school or walk up from school or whatever. So, I thought, it's time for me to write a story, write my own story, and then talk about getting into acting, finding my way through that, and becoming a superhero, and going into politics, and then coming out the other side and being a superhero again. So that has been really an interesting journey to write that book. I finished my last chapter on the plane coming from Los Angeles back to Toronto, day before yesterday, after the premiere in LA.
Wow.
And then on the plane ride here, I wrote the whole time, and I finished my last chapter. So it's all ready. It's going to the publisher for editing and stuff, and it will be published in the fall. Potter's Field Press is publishing it. Nimbus Publishing is distributing, and it will be available on Amazon. So it was a great experience. I loved writing. My dad was a writer. He wrote these children's books called the Ozzy 6, and he wrote poetry. He taught me about writing and writing poetry when I was very young. I started when I was about 8, writing poetry. So before my dad just died a few months ago, and I really loved him so much. He had a long and very lovely life. So he was 91, and he was ready to go. But I said to Dad, "Look, Dad, can I continue your legacy of writing your children's books after you're gone?" He said, "Absolutely." So I'm going to continue to write the Aussie Six after I finish my memoirs, and then I want to try and see if I can get it turned into an animated series. Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
That'll be so...
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
I know. And, and if anyone who does love their mom or their dad, and you can continue on a project that meant something to them, it makes you feel good.
And, well, you're a powerful person. You're always a powerful character. Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Yes.
All right. And I hope everybody out there loves the new show.
Yes. X-Men 97 comes on Disney Plus March 20th.
Be there,
Yes.
sugar.